Have you ever stared at your law essay question and felt completely overwhelmed? You're not alone. Research has actually shown that Nigerian law students would rather answer problem questions than essay questions. But today, I'm going to be breaking down steps that you need to know to turn those challenging prompts into opportunities for you to showcase your legal knowledge and writing skills. So get ready to master the art of answering law essay questions just the way top law students do. The course we're going to be using is administrative law. That is because I want to believe that if you're watching this video, you've either done or you're currently doing constitutional law or administrative law. So let's write the question first. Administrative law has evolved and gained the status of an independent field of study, although its affinity with constitutional law has made several observers question the rationale of its existence and independence. This notwithstanding, certain arguments have been put forth to justify the existence as well as distinctiveness of administrative law. Evaluate this statement. As long as it might look, it's a typical question. It's actually a past question for, I don't know if it was my set, but the past question in my school. So I'm using this for, a typical law essay question is this lengthy. The first thing we're going to do is to understand the question broadly, understand the whole part of the question, especially if it is a lengthy question like this. And what you do is to underline part by part. When I say understand broadly, I'm saying that don't just look at the question and be like, oh, it's on introduction to administrative law, I know it. So you just start writing everything about chapter 1 in the textbook that is introduction to administrative law. That is not what you have to do. What you're supposed to do is to understand broadly. That means, okay, now we already know that obviously it is an administrative law exam, so we know that it's under administrative law. We already know that the topic is chapter 1, right? And that is introduction to admin law. This is the topic, introduction to admin law. Now the next thing we're supposed to do is to understand the topic broadly. Administrative law has evolved, so that's tip number 1. Tip number 1 is understand the question broadly. So administrative law has evolved and gained the status of an independent field of study. This is one part. So what this part is saying that administrative law is independent of any other study. Then the next part is, although its affinity with constitutional law, so that means the other study that it is independent of is what? It's constitutional law. Admin law is independent of constitutional law. Although its affinity with constitutional law has made several observers question the rationale of its existence. That means several observers have questioned the rationale of its existence. That means observers have questioned the rationale of the existence of admin law, right? People are saying that why is admin law existing separately? While some, right, this notwithstanding, so notwithstanding this, certain arguments have been put forth to justify the existence as well as the distinctiveness of administrative law. So while some observers have questioned the rationale, right, some other observers support the rationale. That's why I say you have to understand the question broadly. Don't just say, okay, it's under chapter this, it's under module this, it's under so topic. Understand the question broadly. Admin law has evolved and gained status of an independent field. This, although its affinity with constitutional law has made several observers question the rationale, this notwithstanding, certain arguments have been put forth to justify the existence as well as the distinctiveness of administrative law. This, so we have understood it broadly by bringing out these 3 things that we are to talk about. The next thing we're going to do is to break down the keywords. Number 2, breaking down the keywords and removing confusion involves understanding the meaning of every word. So you are going to be sure that you know what admin law is. Of course, you have to know what admin law is. Of course, you have to know what constitutional law is. And then you have to know words that are important, that are used to tie these things together. You have to understand it. Administrative law has evolved and gained the status of an independent field of study. You have to know what it means for it to evolve. That means administrative law has not always been studied, right? Or maybe it used to be studied, but it used to be studied with a part of another law, most likely constitutional law, right? So it has evolved and gained the status. That means there was a time it was not evolved. That's like the rule. That's why I say you have to understand. It's not just saying I can define admin law. Admin law is the study of government agencies and all of those. Constitutional is the study of the structure of government. It's not just about that. It's about understanding what these words mean. And the lecturer could have just said administrative law is an independent field of study, but he said that administrative law has evolved and gained the status of independence, which means that this itself has something to do with the question, right? So you need to understand that. You need to understand all this word like evolved, gained status of independence. Let's say, for instance, you don't know what a word means. What do? Let's say I see this question in exam hall. I have read it. I've understood it broadly to an extent, and then I want to answer this question because I feel like I know it, but I don't know the meaning of affinity. right? So affinity, it says that although it's affinity with constitutional law, can you say that affinity is a very important word in this question? So now perhaps I don't know the meaning of affinity. What am I going to do? If you don't know the meaning of a word in the exam hall, there are two things involved. There's either a way that you can, read the whole question and truly have an idea of what he's saying, even if you're not exactly sure, and you just leave the question alone. Like if you're not sure at all, the best thing is to leave the question. But if you can read the question and understand, then by all means go for it. So let's see if we can actually understand this word if we didn't know what it means. Admin law has evolved, gained the status of independent field of study, although its affinity with constitutional law has made some people say question the rationale of the existence. That means it exists on its own, but its affinity is making some people say there's no need to exist. So admin law exists, but because it's maybe the same with constitutional law, they're like, why are you separating it? Do you understand? So I would guess that affinity is like share the similarity with it, and the actual meaning of affinity is related. So that's it. Admin law is related to constitutional law, right? So that's part of what we're breaking down. We're breaking down words like evolved and gained independent status. We're breaking down words like affinity, right? Notwithstanding. Notwithstanding is trying to say that this first part is not exactly a lie. Do you get? So it's just like you're saying that he went to the market, even though he still came to my house. Do you get? So we're saying that notwithstanding the fact that I went to market, he still came to my house. So we're saying he went to the market and he came to my house. So this notwithstanding is trying to say that even though it is related, it's not cancelling this. Do you understand? So maybe notwithstanding should be part of this statement. Notwithstanding, certain arguments have been put forth to justify the existence as well as distinctiveness of administrative law. So notwithstanding this, some people have justified the existence as well as distinctiveness. I think distinctiveness is a key word in this statement, right? This is it. So the first thing to do is to understand broadly, read it, underline with your pen. Then the next thing is to break down the keywords. Obviously, when you want to break down the keywords and remove confusion, you have to read the question again. You can see now that when I read the question again that I spotted evolved, gain status of independence, all these words that truly matters. Then when you're done, the last thing is to answer the question. Now, to answer the question, you will hear that your essay question must have intro, body, conclusion. Correct. There's no doubt about it. But then, what are we writing in the intro? What are we writing in the body? What are we writing in the conclusion? That's what we don't know. Abby, you must understand that every law essay question has a thesis or thesis. I don't know. Let me just say thesis. Has a thesis. So what thesis is that it is the statement, quote, research that precedes the question. So if you look at this, the question is to evaluate this statement. This is the question. Evaluate this statement. What you have to do is to evaluate. Now the thesis is the statement that you have to evaluate. All these things, all this one like this. This is the thesis. This is the thesis. So every law essay question has a thesis. Usually, maybe not all, but it's rare. It's really rare for you to see an essay question under this topic now that they'll just tell you what are the similarities and differences between admin law and constitutional law. You will not find it's gonna be so complicated that you'll be like, is it not just see me and DC? Every law essay question has a thesis. It can be a statement as lengthy as this, or maybe not as lengthy as this. It can be a quote, right? That maybe a justice of the Supreme Court said, in the words of Henry Dunant, blah, 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 blah. They'll not ask a question. That quote or what Henry Dunant said is the thesis. Thesis of every question, you must put it in your answer. You must find a way, maybe in the body, maybe in the conclusion, you must find a way to put it. It's just like they put a quote of Henry Dunant, then I say, evaluate the validity of this statement. And you will answer that question and you will not write that quote. You are playing. Your thesis must always be your question at the end of the day, even if it's not like expressly quoted, it must be there. So the thing you are going to do to answer this question, first of all, take note of your thesis and know that it must be inside, right? So the first one is introduction. In your introduction, you are going to explain administrative law. You're going to define administrative law. If perchance you did not know that, oh, there was a time administrative law was not existing, because for instance I said that administrative law has evolved and gained the status of an independent field of study. That means it used to be, if they just said evolved, we can say that okay, administrative law has always been existing but it became advanced. But they said gain the status of an independent field of study. That means it was not always independent. So if you know the back end story of how it was not always independent, write it. If you don't know the back end story, write, that's where your thesis comes in. If I did not even know that administrative law evolved, you just write that administrative law has evolved and gained the status of an independent field of study. Obviously, that's not going to be your first line, because that would be like I repeating the question. Maybe the first thing you do is to define administrative law, right? And then when you're answering law essay questions, you cannot play, quote and unquote, in the sense that if you are defining, is use definitions that exist according to Black Laws Dictionary, according to Nikitobi JCA as it then was. In the case of so, administrative law was defined as this. Did you get? Even though you're not quoting, you don't have to quote it expressly. For instance, when I'm answering essay questions, I may not exactly cram how the judge defined it, right? Maybe the judge defined administrative law as the study of agencies that govern the operations of the country, right? So, and I don't want to cram it like that. I would just say, oh, Nikitobi stated entirely, that's where those legal juggernaut terminology comes in, that administrative law examines the structure, blah, blah. You shall say it in your own words, but you put his name, as long as you're not quoting it, you're not putting it in quotation mark, right? So you do that. You then, when I do my definition, if it were to be me, after defining admin law, maybe give one or two definitions. I will not say this. The administrative law over the years, you will not quote it like this, because it's not code. Over the years, administrative law has continued to evolve and have gained the status of an independent field of study from constitutional law. You might remove from constitutional law. Then you define constitutional law. The next thing to do is to move to the body. When we say that, some people are saying that administrative law is independent, some people are saying that it's joint. That means for them to say that it's joint, there are similarities, and for them to say that it's separate, there are differences. So what you're going to do in your body is to talk about the similarities and the differences of administrative law and constitutional law. This is not the point to bring your opinion of whether it should be joined or it should be separated. You're going to first of all say facts before your opinion. So you talk about the similarities, talk about the differences, use Latin maxims if there be, use proper grammatical construction. Instead of saying that MF Adenipekun defined so as this, you can say MF Adenipekun postulated or adumbrated about, okay, maybe the grammar is small, but you get what I'm trying to say. Use proper, correct grammatical construction. The few ones that you know, put it there, and use like all those legal terms, pari passu, administrative and constitutional law go pari passu. In a locus classicus case, you know what I'm saying if you're lost and watching this video. After you have done the whole body introduction and conclusion, you show understanding of the point of view of both sides. So you must show why people are saying that, oh, this is why it should be joined. That's the similarities, of course, but you will not say the similarities between admin law and constitutional law are this. You will not write it like that. You write it that the observers that have questioned the rationale of the existence of administrative law because of its correlation or affinity with constitutional law is because of so. Right, they are both dealing with the structure and the operations of the country, of the government, blah blah blah. You write it like that. Then the difference is, you know, say on the other side or correspondingly, the certain arguments are arisen, to justify the existence as well as distinctiveness of administrative law. Can you see I'm bringing in pieces? I'm not saying that the difference between admin law and constitutional law are this. I'm bringing in these pieces. Certain arguments have been put forth to justify the existence as well as the distinctiveness of administrative law from constitutional law, because of, you now start write it in explanatory form, the differences, not that the similarities are, you not draw table, except if your lecturer says that though. So after you must have done that, the next thing is conclusion. It is in conclusion that we then evaluate the statement. Now, what does the word evaluate mean? Evaluate means to carefully examine, to analyze, to assess the value, quality, significance, right, validity of a thing, right? So if the question says evaluate this statement, the question is saying that we should assess this statement, carefully examine this statement, and establish the significance, the validity of this statement. So if you ask me to evaluate this statement, after I must have done that intro and conclusion, I will tell you that what the lecturer is asking you to do is to state whether admin law has an affinity with constitutional law or admin law is separate and should be separated from constitutional law. I promise you that that is what this evaluate here is asking you to do after you must have done everything for the intro and the body. So what do you do here? It is at this point that if you have your opinion, you state it. And if you don't have your opinion, you state what you think is fact. What do I mean? If I have answered intro, I've answered body, a person who is reading it can see that I have spoken from both sides. It is in my conclusion that I will not say whether I feel that administrative law has no need of existing on its own and should be joined with constitutional law, or even though administrative law has an affinity with constitutional law, it should still exist separately. My personal view for this question, though, is that even though administrative law has affinity with constitutional law, they should still exist independently of each other, because at the end of the day, constitutional law focuses more on the structure of government, while administrative law focuses more on the structure of agencies of government. But yeah, so if I were to answer that question, I will talk about that, right? I will talk about that. And then if you feel like, you are not opinionated, or you think that your matter does not count, you don't know that the fact that you can state an opinion and defend that opinion impresses your lecturer, you don't know that, then you can just conclude as someone that is sitting on the fence. See, at the end of the day, you have to pick a side. It's telling you that some people are saying join it together, some people are saying don't join it together. You cannot conclude by saying join it together and don't join it together. You have to conclude by either saying they should join it together or they should not join it together. Now, the interesting thing about this kind of question is that anyone you choose cannot fail you. What will fail you is your body and perhaps your intro, right? The main thing, like the similarity, the differences. That's what this whole question is about: the similarities and differences of admin law and constitutional law, right? So that's the problem people make when answering essay question. They read it and they're like, oh, it's talking about similarity and difference. Then they define admin law is this, constitutional law is this. The similarities between admin law and constitutional law are this. The differences between admin law and constitutional law are this. In conclusion, admin law is similar to constitutional law, but admin law exists independently of the. That is not very legal of you. You must know how to answer the question in a systemic format, following logical coherence and arriving at a conclusion. And when I mean coherent, I mean that somebody should be able to read it and be like, this is well written, right? And why essay questions is very important is because writing skills is very important in the legal profession. I believe, it is my honest opinion, that problem question does, but does not really, does not do as much as essay question in testing our writing skills, because problem question feels like there's a pattern to follow. I hope that with this video you understand that answering essay question is not so much of a hassle if you can go through the process of giving yourself maybe maximum of 5 minutes to analyze the question before you start writing. So I would advise that you first of all read the question for the purpose of understanding the topic. Obviously, you will know the cost, the paper you're writing, for the purpose of understanding the topic. Yeah, I should also mention that it is possible for your essay question to tilt towards another topic, right? So this one now is just on introduction, but it is possible that in this question the lecturer can put it in a way that module 1 is inside the question and module 4 is inside the question too. That's why I said I don't read it and be like, oh, I know the topic, because how then do you marry them together? I hope I helped you with this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.